You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report's Boys Basketball High School State Finals preview and prediction show with Grant Shouse and Michelle Garmon, followed by an interview with former Tipton and Mount Vernon head coach Travis Daugherty. Please stay tuned for that at the end of the podcast. And please check out my new daily podcast, Greg and His Friends Talk Sports, every weekday on the Central Indiana Sports Report. My friends and I are talking about the Pacers, Colts, Fever, IU, Purdue, IndyCar, national sports, and of course, local high school sports coverage as well. Greg and His Friends Talk Sports every weekday afternoon. Welcome, high school basketball fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report for a boys basketball state finals preview and predictions podcast. I'm here with Grant Shouse of the Action Sports Network and our IU guy. I'm here with Michelle Garmon of the Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader. We are going to start in Class A and work our way up and talk about each state championship, and we're probably going to reflect quite a bit on the semi-state as well. Grant, is there a particular game you're looking most forward to?
Probably the 2A game. I think the one that kind of grabs a lot of people's attention due to the fact that you have two teams that, of course, you see the bias in me coming out, but probably were two of the three best teams in 2A this season with Westview and Parke Heritage, two programs that have been there before. Parke Heritage looking for their first state title, Westview looking for their third, and that they're just so evenly matched and so many stats across the board, and I'm really looking forward to that ball game on Saturday, probably the most out of the four.
I'd go with the 4A, Michelle. What about you?
I would go with 4A too. I'm really looking forward to that. But then, Grant, I will say 2A would be the second game that I'm most interested in.
The 4A game I'm really looking forward to as well. It's a rematch of the Hall of Fame championship. So those two teams are meeting for the second time this year with Mount Vernon and Crown Point.
Of course, for me, it's a vested interest a little bit in Mount Vernon because of Owen Daugherty being on there. Travis is one of the favorite coaches I've ever been around and worked with.
And he's coming up, Michelle.
Yes, he is. We had a really nice chat with Travis.
Please stick around for that after we get done previewing it, and therefore that's the reason we are going Class 1A to 4A, so we can go Mount Vernon straight into Travis Daugherty. Also, it's because Class A starts first, and that's at 10:30 a.m., 27-1 Barr-Reeve, 25-3 Triton. Grant and Barr-Reeve, pretty big favorite in this one, I would think, even though Triton's had an incredible year. You've seen the Vikings. How good are they?
I think they're as advertised, Greg. They're a team that doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. They play together. They are really, really talented in terms of they have guys that fit their mold, right? They have guys that play to their standards. And these are kids that have been taught and been coached their entire lives, that have grown up in the system and played the system and had cousins and brothers and long family members who have always been there, that have come through Barr-Reeve and have played, and they've gone to games. So these kids know how to win because they've watched everyone else before them do it. And they're 10-0 in their last 10 games, and they've won 18 in a row coming in, 6 in a row, of course, in the tournament. But they're a team that I think is the team. They're obviously, I think, the team to beat in Class 1 on Saturday.
Triton's a program, too, though, that has had a lot of success over the years and, of course, beat Marquette Catholic.
Triton's here for a reason. They won a state championship back in 2008 with their current coach, Jason Groves. This is a program that's been here 5 times. This will be their 5th time here on Saturday. They were runner-ups in 2009, 2011, and 2013. So they've lost 3 in a row down in Indianapolis in the state championship game, but looking to add another banner there. Their best player is Julian Swanson, 12 points a game. Aiden Overmeyer averages 4 rebounds. Landon Patrick, who is the grandson of Bill Patrick, one of the all-time legendary coaches in Indiana. He's their assist leader with 5.5 assists per game. So Triton may not be as talented as Barr-Reeve, but obviously they're here for a reason. They beat Marquette Catholic, and they're very well coached coming into the state championship. One of the interesting things about Barr-Reeve and their sports here is that they are looking for their second state championship for their athletic department this season. Their volleyball team won the state championship at Gainbridge. They won the 2A at Gainbridge in a 5-set win over Benton Central last fall. This is the 8th state championship game appearance for Barr-Reeve basketball. They've been here 8 times in the class era, and their coach, Heath Howington, who's in his first season, he would be the 3rd different coach at Barr-Reeve to win a state championship if they hoist the trophy on Saturday. Brian Hughes, of course, led the school to their first in 2015. I got a chance to talk to him the other night down at the semi-state. Super nice guy. Josh Thompson won a state championship for this team in 2021. He's now the head coach at rival Daugherty. So this is a program, again, the pedigree in terms of they've been here before, similar to Triton, is really, really impressive. So that's kind of why I favor Barr-Reeve, is because these kids know kind of what to expect. The kids for Triton really may not get it because the last times they were here, they were preschool kids. That's
Right.
kind of the reason I'm picking Barr-Reeve, and just because I think they're a more talented team.
I'm taking Barr-Reeve too, Michelle. I bet you're making it 3.
I am making it 3. And Grant, you bring about that he could be the 3rd coach, and that's impressive. Just as impressive the tradition that is at Barr-Reeve that's instilled. So it makes you kind of think that is something they take a lot of pride in. Families do, and that pride is carried from generation to generation.
It's really impressive, and because it's one thing to win if you've already won 2 state championships at the same program 6 years apart. It's one thing to do it with the same coach, right? But the fact that you could do it with 3 different coaches that have come in and won a state title it's almost unheard of. That just doesn't happen everywhere.
Really says a lot about the people of that town.
And there's no doubt about it. And they don't have football. It's a school that's too small to not have football, even though they probably could. Like North Davies has football. But so all these kids are really invested into basketball and baseball. I mean, they're successful in baseball too. So that's another big thing. Baseball won the state championship 2 years ago. And of course, the volleyball team has won 4 state championships. So the athletic pedigree at Barr-Reeve is really impressive, especially in really the last 15 years or so.
The Class 2A state championship will start at approximately 12:45 p.m. unless the first game goes into like 4 overtimes. That will probably be the start time. This 27-1 Westview impressively coming out of the Muncie semi-state against 26-4 Parke Heritage. Impressively coming out of the Southport semi-state, and these 2 teams are playing incredibly well. Grant mentioned it. If you could watch one game, that might be the one. I believe this one and the 4A game, I think you throw a blanket over the 2 teams. Whichever team comes to play that day is the team that's going to win. And I covered Westview in a state championship a long time ago. I hate to say, with Coach Troy Neely. It takes me back a little, and they could do it for the first time since that state championship in 2000.
That would be 26 years in the making. And the magic number is 26 for Westview. They've won 26 games in a row coming into the state championship. Their last loss was back on December 1st, where they lost to Northridge, a Northridge team that made it to the semi-state this year in 4A. So Westview, a team that's won 26 games in a row. Of course, they're 10-0 in their last 10. In the last 4 years, their senior class is 82-24. So they've come a long way there. But all these guys are juniors. Austin Schlaball, their leading scorer, at just around 20 a game if you round up. Only a junior. Their leading rebounder, no surprise on this kid's name, Daniel Yoder, 5.5 rebounds a game. So this is a Westview team that is kind of a junior-laden team. Of course, they got a senior in Caden Grau, who Kevin talked about last week on the semi-state preview. He's a senior for this team that averages 18 a game. So this is a Westview team that potentially could do this again next year. Of course, they'll have to go through Oak Hill, and I got no problem saying that. Westview, a team that certainly is deserving of being here, and their coach Chandler Pribble. Here's a little nugget for you guys. His dad Mark coached in the 2A state championship at one point. His father-in-law John Bodie, who was the coach at Central Noble, also coached in this game, and now he is coaching in this game as well. So there's a little nugget for you on Westview. Well, this is the stat I had for you with Barr-Reeve and Westview coincidentally competing in the 2A or in the 1A and 2A state finals this weekend in two different state championships. Those are probably the two biggest Amish Mennonite communities in the state, and they love their basketball. And surprisingly, I figured this would be a bigger number. There's only a combined 4 Yoders between the two teams, and Westview has 3 of them. 3 Yoders to Barr-Reeve's 1, which I was shocked to hear about.
Oh, Westview is always going to win the Yoders.
Parke Heritage is 26-4 this year, and their 4 losses have come against 4A competition. They lost to Zionsville. They also lost to Fishers. They lost to Ben Davis. This is a team that also lost to Terre Haute North, who is a semi-state participant as well. So this Parke Heritage team is a team that hasn't shied away from competition, has played equal, if not better, too, of a strength of schedule to Westview's this season. And Parke Heritage certainly no slouch coming into this. That's what makes this so interesting, is that we spent a lot of time there talking about Westview, but we could spend just as much, if not more time on Parke Heritage. This has kind of been in the making for them as well with their senior class. Trey Shelsky, the coach's son, 15 a game coming from him. Isaac Pickle, he's about 6'9", their big guy underneath, 7 rebounds a game for him. Parke Heritage making the school's second state championship game, chasing the school's first ever state title in any sport. This is a school that was just created in the 2019-2020 school year after the consolidation of Rockville and Turkey Run became Parke Heritage. Not a very old school. Rich Shelsky, their coach, is a Rockville grad. He, I guess, if you counted Rockville, here is the only coach that would be coaching their alma mater in a state championship this weekend. But Parke Heritage certainly deserving to be there. This is going to be their 4th consecutive game against a ranked opponent. Number 3, Westview, of course. They defeated number 5, Centerville in the regional, beat number 6, Triton Central, and number 8, Linton Stockton in the semi-state. They also beat South Putnam to win its 4th straight sectional back on March 7th. And this team is only allowing 43 points per game. They get it done with their defense.
This is one of the games I think is a toss-up. Grant, we should point out that you picked Parke Heritage all the way through this thing when I picked Centerville, and I think we both had Oak Hill last week. You got me on this one. You also got me on the Class A because
I'm not shocked, though.
Barr-Reeve just got past Liberty Christians.
They did. I was almost eating my words. They won on a last-second shot.
So take my picks with a grain of salt, everybody. But saying that having been said, I'm going to take Parke Heritage in this one by a point. I think it might be even overtime.
I agree with you, Greg. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. I don't necessarily like to go against a team like Westview that I think probably in ousting Oak Hill, ousted one of the better teams in 2A too. But I think Parke Heritage is the one just because of defense. Shooting environment, it can be tough, but if you are tough defensively and you don't give up a lot of points, that will keep you in a lot of games. So I agree. I think it's going to be close, and I will take Parke Heritage in a tight contest.
I'm going to be one to split this party up. I'm going to take Westview to win the 2A state championship. I'm really looking forward to the atmosphere in there, especially for the day session, just due to the fact you've got 4 public schools that will travel well, especially Barr-Reeve and Westview. Westview brought, I think, over 3,000 fans down to Muncie last week. And if you haven't heard the story about the Westview Whistler, look that up. He's a guy that is in the stands. You don't ever really know where he's at, but he has a way to get this whistle going that gets the people all fired up. It's actually really cool. But with the game here, I'm going to take Westview to win by 1. Greg took Parke Heritage by 1. I'm going to take Westview by 1. and maybe maybe an overtime or two. Hopefully, I'd love to see a great game down there. And they're looking for their first state championship since 2000. This is their fourth appearance down there. So this would be a long time in the making for Westview. And I'm sure the horses and buggies are getting fired up on Friday and making the trek down the road to Indianapolis.
We have 24-5 Cathedral against 22-7 New Haven. One of the best stories coming into the weekend, but probably the least compelling of the four games. This is the one I think everybody expects Cathedral's going to win, right?
This is probably and I hate saying this, but it's probably the least interesting of the four games. These two teams actually match up better with each other than expected, but when you look at points per game, Cathedral's averaging 77 a game, New Haven 63 a game. Points allowed a game, Cathedral's allowing 60 a game, New Haven's averaging about 53 per game. So New Haven, I've been impressed with all tournament. Tavar Baskerville, who goes by Deuce Baskerville, 16 a game for him. He's only a junior. And then Lavelle Ledbetter, also a junior, leads the team in rebounds and assists. Over the last four seasons, this is a team that's just barely over 500. 54 and 48 in 4 years. Their last 2 years, they're 36 and 18. This is the team I think that just, and no disrespect, but it's kind of here just because of how easy the Class 3A North path was. We know that it was kind of wide open, and I picked New Haven to be here all along, but it's just, it was kind of a weaker bracket in the 3A North. The 3A South, Cathedral, no question, deserves to be here, Greg, after they knocked off Silver Creek last week, which was probably the upset of the year. I know Cathedral was number 3 coming in, but Silver Creek was number 1, and I really thought could probably win the 4A championship too.
The only unranked team at the state finals, and that's really cool, but I think everyone will be stunned if Cathedral doesn't run away with this.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I just think Cathedral's just such a very athletic team. Their win over Silver Creek last week is very impressive, and I really kind of thought that anyway last week that winner would probably win at Gamebridge this weekend.
I agree, and I think that Cathedral, a team here with Aldridge at 18 a game, this is the fourth state championship game that Cathedral has been in their program. They're looking for their second state championship in 5 seasons. And of course, the big thing that jumps out is the fact that Cathedral beat Silver Creek last week, like we already said. And even if Silver Creek was here playing New Haven, it'd be the same story, probably even a little more lopsided. This Cathedral team, they beat number 15 Addicts in the sectional. And they beat number 10 Brebeuf in the regional. So they've been battle tested here. And one of their losses this year was to Crown Point, actually. Back on December 30th, they lost by 3. Jason Delaney is the only coach to win a title at 3 different schools. He won at Waldron in 2004, Arsenal Tech in 2014, and then Cathedral back in 2022. So him and Basil Mawby are elite company in the state's history. And Delaney looking to add to that there as Cathedral trying to win another state championship under him, and I think they will, and I actually think they'll probably win going away. They're a team here, again, like I said earlier, not shocked that they're here, but I just don't think it's a great matchup for him against Cathedral. New Haven dropped 4 of its last 7 games of the regular season, but they rebounded nicely coming into the tournament. They've got wins over number 9 West Lafayette in the regional, which I was there for. And they were down against Columbia City in the final seconds and hit a game-winning shot with 2 seconds to go to lift them into the state championship after they beat their conference rival in Columbia City last week. So this is a New Haven team that beat Marion in the sectional championship. 6 of the 7 teams that New Haven lost to were 4A teams, and they won the Northeast State Conference with a 6-1 record this season. This is their first ever state championship appearance. This was a program that had never won a regional before this, and this would be the first team state championship in program history if they can pull it off.
I can't believe it. Their first in school history in any sport. I can't believe that.
Yeah. That's hard for me to believe, too, because it's not really a bad athletic department.
No, it's a great school.
Just because it sits on the east side of Fort Wayne, kind of in it's its own town a little bit as you come into Fort Wayne. It's a really nice place. I've broadcasted a game there.
A lot of athletic tradition. I cannot believe they've never won a teen state. I know they've had wrestlers for sure, and they've had other individuals. I'm just kind of stunned by that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think they'd have a shot if they didn't have to go up against Cathedral or Silver Creek.
Everybody agrees Cathedral, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And then the big one, Class 4A. It's two teams with some stars and a lot of good role players, and it should be a fantastic game. Approximately 8:15 at the Fieldhouse, both teams playing for their first state championship. Grant, that's a little surprising too.
It is a little surprising. I figured Mount Vernon had been there before. I listened to your Daily show the other day, and you pointed that out, and I was like, you know what? He's right. I figured they would have been here before at some point.
I thought it was Jimmy Howell.
Yeah, I mean, because Jimmy's a great coach, and he had a really good team back in the day in the 90s. But Mount Vernon 27-3 coming in here. Of course, they have Mr. Basketball to be in Luke Ertl, 24 points a game, averages 9.9 rebounds, which basically 10, and then averages just shy of 7 assists per game. He is the real deal, guys, and he's the reason they're here. Also, you got to look at Max Weiss, who's their big guy underneath. They're kind of a dynamic duo, but don't sleep on this Crown Point team. 48-4 in their last two seasons with a guy named Dikembe Shaw, 17 a game for him going to University of Illinois, Chicago. Averages 6 rebounds. Bryce Peters, another senior, 4 assists to lead them. This is kind of the matchup in the making a little bit, other than Fishers. Fishers, I think, was everybody's favorite coming in, but they lost to Carmel early on, and these two teams competed back just before Christmas in the Hall of Fame tournament championship, where Crown Point beat Mount Vernon 60-56. So Mount Vernon's looking for revenge, and they're going to have a good opportunity to do so on Saturday night.
That they are. And yes, it's hard to beat a team twice in the same year, and it's hard to beat a really good team twice in the same year, especially if you're good yourself. For me, it comes down to Mount Vernon is going to have the best player by far in the state of Indiana this year. And he will definitely be the best player on the floor on Saturday night. And this is a little bit before your time, but Greg, you know who Luke Ertl makes me think of? He makes me think of Damon Bailey. Could do it all. Hits clutch shots, rebounds, passes extremely well. Just clutch. He's got that clutch gene and is chill. He can play through foul trouble and everything. And Luke Ertl makes me think, his game makes me think of Damon Bailey, and that he's one cool customer. And he's just has that clutch gene.
I agree with you, I think, in a way there. He just plays so smooth. He's a fun player to watch because he's so fundamentally sound. He makes the right decisions. I think what separates him is that he makes everybody else around him better. He's by far the best player on his team, but he's made other guys around him also be really, really good. Like we mentioned, Max Weiss, who's 6'8" in the junior, 14 a game. Other guys like Jack Geyer, 6'4" senior, averages 8 a game as well. So Ertl's a kid that hopefully can have a good game on Saturday night and can help will this team to a championship. But Crown Point also, I think, has the second best player in the state in Dikembe Shaw. Shaw's a little more athletic, I think, than Ertl is. He's going to play at a mid-major. But these are two really talented teams, and you've got coaches that have had experience coaching at a high level before. Joe Bradburn is the coach at Mount Vernon in his third year, 63-18 in his third year. He's coached high school ball for 27 years, 364 career wins, 152 losses in his 27th year overall. And then Clint Swan, a soon-to-be Hall of Famer. The reason I heard about Clint Swan is because he's buddies with two guys I know, and Aaron Wolf, who's the coach at Northwood, and Steve Lynch, who's the coach at Brownsburg. So he's in elite company with a lot of really good coaches here. He actually took Andrean to a state championship back in the day. 306 wins in his time at Crown Point, 444 wins overall in his 29th year as a head coach. So this is a guy that took these Crown Point teams in the last few years deep into the tournament, but ran into a buzzsaw of Fishers and just couldn't get it done. So this is a long time in the making here, and I'm really excited for this 4A game on Saturday. I think it's another toss-up.
Hey, Grant, Steve Lynch was also a former coach at Mount Vernon.
I did know that, right. Actually. I wasn't even thinking of that. You kind of caught me there. But yeah, so there's some good coaches in Indiana. I actually think personally that Indiana, we are blessed with some of the best high school coaches in the country.
No doubt.
And every year you see those on display down at the state championship.
And I'm gonna throw in a player on Mount Vernon that he hit 2 huge free throws and a couple threes last week. He doesn't always score double figures, and he's not always one of the top threes, but in some of their big games, he's had big nights, and that's Owen Daugherty. That's Travis Daugherty's son.
Just a little early on leading me into that, Michelle. Just a little.
That could be overlooked in the game, I think. And
yeah, of course, we have his father and high school basketball coaching legend, Travis Daugherty, coming up here. Michelle, of course, was at the Tipton Tribune when Coach Daugherty was with the Blue Devils, and they had a lot to talk about in the past, but also an awful lot talking about this year's team and Luke Ertl and Owen and all the rest of the guys. It was a nice, long interview and a lot of fun to do. But before we get to that, we need to make our picks in this one because I think we might be split in this one too. I'll go first. I'm going to take Mount Vernon. I think they're going to get it done down the stretch, win this one in a very close game.
I'm going to take Mount Vernon as well to win this. I'm tempted to go Crown Point. I just think things have lined up for Luke Ertl to go out with a bang and end his career as probably Mr. Basketball and a state champion. And if the truth be known, maybe win the Trester Award, which has only been done a handful of times over the years. So give me Mount Vernon to cut down the nets in the 4A title game in front of a really large crowd at Cambridge Fieldhouse on Saturday evening.
I'm going to take Mount Vernon too. It's going to be a sweep. And as far as Luke Ertl is concerned, when Travis Daugherty told me that not only is he the best player in the state of Indiana this year and is Mr. Basketball, but he said he's an even better person. So I hope they win. It would be wonderful if he did take home the Trester Award too. But I'm going to choose Mount Vernon, and I think Ertl's going to make big plays. He's done it all year. I don't see him not coming up big for Mount Vernon on Saturday night. But I do think it's going to be a great, thrilling game. And
all right, Grant is going to be there on Saturday. We will do a recap at some point. Make sure you check that out here on the Central Indiana Sports Report. We either have our own podcast or we'll do it on my daily podcast, Greg and his friends talk sports, on Monday. Again, that's every weekday afternoon. Greg and his friends talk sports. Michelle and Grant are probably my two most common guests, so make sure you check that out. Thanks so much, guys. And Grant, have fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's a tradition every year. Try to make it down there, and I'll be on press row, which will be nice. I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward for a full day of basketball. I kind of get sad when all the games are over because that means like, dang, like season's kind of over. But I have learned, in a way, if you really think about it, in the last few years, because I don't consider the season and playing games being over until the national championship is over. The season never really ends, guys. It just kind of dies down, and it just doesn't have as much hype. And then
Oops, sorry I cut you off there, Grant. Thanks so much, Grant and Michelle. Michelle will stay here and take charge of the debut appearance of former Alexandria Star and Tipton, Chatard and Mt. Vernon head coach Travis Daugherty. Please stay tuned for that.
And now we welcome to the Central Indiana Sports Report for the first time Travis Daugherty, former head coach at Tipton. But we're here mostly to talk about some Tipton days with Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader sports editor Michelle Garmon, and of course about the Mount Vernon Marauders, who are headed to the state championship game on Saturday with a player named Owen Daugherty. Coach, welcome to the Central Indiana Sports Report. And although not directly involved as coaching, are you any more nervous, less nervous? How are you feeling about Saturday?
Well, hi, Greg. Thanks a lot for having me today. Man, being a parent is way more nerve-wracking, I think, than being a coach. When you're in the bleachers watching your kid perform, there's a level of anxiety and a lack of control that you really have to get used to. That's not part of the deal when you're coaching. So I'm extremely excited for Saturday and really grateful for this awesome opportunity for my son. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little nervous when game time comes around.
I bet. Should be a great game, too.
Yeah, it should be a great game. This is a rematch of the Hall of Fame championship game from back in December. That's, of course, one of the real prestigious in-season tournaments every year. And they typically try to pinpoint 4 of the top boys and girls teams. And so not surprising that Crown Point and Mount Vernon met in the Hall of Fame championship. Crown Point won that game by 4. To see those two teams back here in the state finals is probably a reflection of the programs, the coaches, and the teams from both schools.
Travis, you talked about that Owen is a current member of Mount Vernon, but the Daugherty ties to Mount Vernon are kind of long because that is where your final coaching stop was. And your oldest child, Aiden, was a member of last year's regional championship team.
Yeah, it's been a really fun couple of years here for me. You know, obviously I went to Mount Vernon as boys basketball coach in 2013, spent 5 years leading that program. And even when I decided to get out of coaching, it was such a fantastic community and a great place for my kids to be, and a place where we really wanted our kids to have their school experience and to graduate from. So I've got deep ties and a real investment in this program, and to see where it's gone in the last few years. Joe Bradburn, our coach, has done just a phenomenal job of really taking this team to the next level. And of course, really grateful my boys have had a chance to be a part of it.
So Travis, your experience with success at tournament levels goes back to when you were younger. Your father led Delta to sectional championships in the 1989 team. You were the official ball boy, so you actually got to climb the ladder and cut down some nets.
Yeah, that's right. That was Matt Painter, who's currently the men's basketball coach at Purdue. That was Matt's senior year at Delta, and my dad's last year at Delta as coach during his first of 2 stints. And as like a 10-year-old kid, those guys on that team were like the equivalent of NBA players to me. They were superstars. And so being able to go to practice and ride the team bus and sit on the bench for games was one of the real highlights of my childhood. And ironically, that team that won the sectional at Delta in 1989 played Alexandria in the regional. Alexandria won that game in the regional. And, you know, my best friend from early on in life, Mickey Hosier, who went on to a great high school career, was a high school teammate of mine, had a great college career at Ball State, and is now the girls coach at Alexandria. Mickey was the ball boy for Alexandria's 1989 team. So we were best friends, even though my dad was coaching in Delta at Delta at the time. We lived in Alexandria growing up. My family, my grandparents and grandparents are from that area. And so that was a really fun season, but kind of a heartbreaking regional experience. And the irony, of course, that I ended up back at Alexandria for my junior and senior year in high school. Mickey remains to this day my best friend on earth. And so those are fun memories for us to look back on from, even our really early high school basketball experience.
Okay, so then you were teammates with Mickey Hosier and then Chris Hahn, another Indiana All-Star. You graduated from Alexandria in 1997. Unfortunately, the year before they won the state championship in 2A, but 98 was the first year of class basketball tournament, correct?
That's right. So my senior year was the last year of one class, and in those days, Alexandria went to the Wigwam for the Anderson sectional. There were some fantastic teams and huge postseason victories for Alexandria in the Wigwam. But man, that was a real grinder of a sectional every year because, Anderson was always one of the top teams in the state, and all those other Madison County teams, Pendleton and Frankton, and of course, in those days, Anderson Highland and Anderson Madison Heights, just all great high level programs. So any success any team had coming out of there was a real big deal. I was not part of a sectional championship in high school, but yeah, the next year, 1998, was the first year of class basketball. And that year, Coach Cohn led Alexandria to the first ever 2A state title.
Okay. But then you went on as a coach and you won multiple sectionals. First stop was at Tipton with the Blue Devils. You spent 5 years and won back-to-back sectional championships in 2008 and 2009. And that was a special team.
That was such a fun time for that community. When I took over in 2004, I think a lot of the pieces were in place and we had a lot of young talent that just needed time to learn and grow and to gain some valuable experience. And really my last 2 years there, that 2008 team, which was, led statistically by Derek Elston, who was a junior that year, but really kind of the heart and soul of that team was Matt Hodges. He was our senior captain that year. Matt suffered a torn ACL during our regular season game with Northwestern that year. But Matt was like, he really personified that team. And, he had such a huge heart for our program and such a strong desire to help kind of take us to the place that we all said we wanted to go. And so Matt delayed surgery until after the season, wore this huge bulking brace and kind of limped his way through the rest of the year and actually made a couple of really clutch free throws for us in the sectional championship, which is probably a reflection now looking back. I'm like, how was I playing a kid with a torn ACL in the biggest game, the biggest moments of the year? But I think all that really speaks to Matt's competitive will and again, just his leadership and his heart for our team and his desire to accomplish that mission that we had set out to achieve. And so that was a really I think a fun and monumental win for our program. And then the next year, Derek Elston was, kind of the leader of that group, but we had a really strong senior class that next year with Kyle Coleman and Jason Dye and Taylor Maxey and, just a number of guys that were Jake Hoffman, just high level competitors and, real contributors to a real balanced team. And, when we had done it for the first time in 2008, I think it was kind of like, none of us had ever really been there before. And, there was, just like a kind of a unique level of excitement in that. The next year in 2009, we really expected to win the sectional and really had our sights set on bigger things beyond just the sectional. Unfortunately, both years we ran into Bishop Luers and the regional, who ended up winning the state title both of those years behind Deshaun Thomas, who was the Mr. Basketball eventually. In one sense, I think I always look back on those teams like, what could have been if we could have played a little better in those regional rounds. But man, just so much pride in how hard those kids worked to achieve, what really had not been done at Tipton in a long time.
And then from Tipton, after the 2009, you went to coach at Bishop Chatard in Indianapolis, spent 4 seasons there. And then you went to Mount Vernon and then led the Marauders to that 4A sectional title in 2018. And while at Mount Vernon, not only were you teammates of 2 Indiana All-Stars and coached one, Derek, you also coached Luke Ertl's older brother, who was also an Indiana All-Star.
Yeah, that's right. Michael was a 2016 grad of Mount Vernon, and Luke's older brother. Obviously, Luke has gotten so much attention this season, and I think undoubtedly will end up being named Mr. Basketball here in the near future. And I will tell you, I don't think there's a more deserving kid in terms of, not only his basketball ability is, of course, off the charts, but just such a super kid and a great student, a great teammate, has really elevated this Mount Vernon program to new heights. And Luke, in all those ways, is a lot like how Michael was. Michael was a great player, ended up going to the University of Louisiana Monroe, and then transferred and finished his career at Alabama Birmingham. He was a part of their NCAA tournament team. Michael's still playing professionally in Hong Kong and has had a great professional career. So I was really lucky to coach him, along with a number of other great players like Derek at Tipton and many others. And it's been a lot of fun to see Luke. When Michael played for me at Mount Vernon, Luke was an elementary school age kid. He and my boys have been good friends for a long time. And I knew early on that Luke was going to be a special player. He's probably exceeded expectations in a lot of ways just because of just his hard work and just such a confident and high level player.
Well, Travis, of course, you've had those special times as the son of a coach. Oh boy, as a coach, and you already said, I know we talked for the story I did, that it's extra special to watch your sons achieve what they're achieving. Take us back a little bit to last year's, because Mount Vernon, I know people have known who Luke Ertl is, but Mount Vernon really became a familiar force last year. Of course, I know part of that was they were always in that kind of that section with like Greenfield Central, who had Braylon Mullins and then some good New Pal teams. But tell us about last year's season and what it was like for you to experience that, watching your older son, Aiden, be a part of that. And then I know Owen was primarily a JV player, but he was on that roster for the tournament, and to see both of your sons out there.
Yeah, from the very beginning, that experience that I described for me as a coach's kid, going to practice, riding the bus to games, really looking up to those high school guys that my dad was coaching, that really, it kind of mirrors the experience that my boys had too. When I was the coach at Mount Vernon, my 2 sons were in elementary school. They came to practice every day. They rode the bus to the games. They really looked up to all those guys. And both of them really had dreams of wearing a Mount Vernon uniform someday and being a part of that program. And it's funny, in the last couple of years with their postseason success, on Facebook, you get these memories that pop up. And one of the memories that came up recently was a picture of, after our 2018 sectional championship, a picture of me cutting a piece of the net with my boys there at Richmond High School after the game. And now to see how they've been able to not only reach that level of success, but even to move beyond that in terms of their postseason experience was just kind of a really fun trip down memory lane, and to appreciate, not only how fast time goes, but how hard they both worked to put themselves in this position. Last year's team at Mount Vernon was a good team. I think throughout the year, they had a good season, and we had hopes, of course, for postseason success. You mentioned Braylon Mullins and his team at Greenfield. They beat us in a close regular season game and were ranked in the state throughout the year at the 4A level. And we met them in the sectional championship. That was really that 2025 sectional championship was kind of Luke Ertl's coming out party. Luke scored 36 in a double overtime, win over Braylon Mullins and Greenfield. And I mean, that was a historic Indiana high school basketball game, like one of those just almost a cinematic type performance from both teams. High level basketball, plays being made on both sides. And so, what an incredible opportunity. My older son, Aiden, was a starter on that team, and his role was really primarily as a defender. He was not a high level scoring threat, although that became more and more a part of his identity. He was kind of the starting point for building a defensive game plan every night for that team last year, and had the opportunity to guard Braylon and Damian King at Anderson, and some other Mason Carpenter at Richmond just in the sectional alone. And then, moving through the regional round against Brownsburg. And then eventually in the semi-state against Jeffersonville, he guarded Trey Singleton, who's now an all freshman team performer in the Big Ten at Northwestern. Aiden took a lot of pride in his defensive ability, and I think really carved out an important role for that team. So to see us win the sectional and then advance, we played Brownsburg, as I mentioned, at Southport in the regional round, and man, just played probably our game of the season. We ended up building a 25-point lead or so at halftime and kind of cruise to a regional championship, which, at the 4A level is just so difficult to do. And then played Jeffersonville to a great game in the morning round of the semi-state. Ended up just running out of gas, and credit to Jeffersonville. They went on to win the state championship and beat undefeated Fishers in that title game. It was a great game. And again, a real historic run for Mount Vernon's program last year. Aiden was one of 5 seniors who were primary contributors on that team. And so there was a lot of unknown coming into this season. Luke obviously was back, and everybody knew Luke's ability, and I think even from the beginning of the year was kind of penciled in as the Mr. Basketball front runner. We had one other real contributor on last year's team, Max Weiss, who's a junior, 6'8" interior player, very talented, very versatile. But beyond that, those 5 seniors who left were really the rest of the varsity roster in terms of statistical contribution. So as you mentioned, Owen was a part of last year's postseason roster, but spent the majority of last year on the JV team. My 2 boys are built physically very differently. Aiden's about 6'3", 200 pounds of just pure muscle. Owen is a real little guy. He's about 5'7", probably weighs 125 pounds soaking wet. And he's always been an elite level shooter, but physically at the 4A level, playing the game is a lot harder for a guy his size. So I was interested to see what role he would have and how he would be able to fit with this new roster of players. And he, along with a number of other guys, have really elevated their game. Owen started, I think, 27 games of the 30 this year in the backcourt alongside Luke. He shot it at about 45% from 3 and made some huge shots throughout the year. Luke has really helped him. Luke garners so much attention that if you help off of Owen, he's able to catch and shoot from the perimeter. But I think Owen's made life a little easier for Luke too, because as the year's gone on and Owen's become more primary part of our opponent's scouting report, you have to stay close to him because of his shooting ability. And obviously that opens things up a little more for Luke, gives him a little more space and a little more room to navigate. So the 2 of them have really complemented each other well. And how Luke has elevated Owen's game, he's done the same for all those other guys too. So I was anticipating that we would have a good year this year. This team has really exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations. They've really bought into their roles. Luke has, of course, played at a really high level, and Max Weiss, our other returner, has had a great season. I anticipate that he'll probably be a junior all-star this year. But everybody else has just kind of done their job. Coach Bradburn has done a fantastic job of, really creating an identity for this group. Traditionally, Coach is a defensive-minded guy who's really committed to developing teams on that end of the floor. And that commitment to defense has won us a number of games this year. And then again, you put Luke's ability around some of these other guys. Coaches allow them to play with, I think, a level of freedom that you probably have to give a guy like, but everybody's just continued to get better and better. And so we were the favorite going into the sectional. We took care of business there. And once you get beyond that round, especially at the 4A level, man, every game is tough. And so we played Pike in the regional game. Pike beat us in a really phenomenal regular season game back in February. One of our 3 losses in the regular season was to Pike. They beat us 84-81 in overtime. And in that game, the two teams combined for a state record 30 made threes. So it was a really entertaining game, a fun game. Pike is a big, athletic, physical team. And so we played a regional game down to the wire with them. Luke made a couple of huge shots late in the game. And again, we kind of fell back on some of those defensive stops late to secure a win there. And that moved us to the semi-state at Newcastle last weekend. We played Decatur Central in the morning game, played a great game and won by 20 points. And then kind of the big next step for us was that evening game in the semi-state. We played New Albany, who's had a great year, very deep, very talented, very athletic team. And it was a back and forth game. We built a lead. Luke got into some foul trouble late in the third quarter and had to come out. New Albany threw that high pressure full court press on us and turned us over and closed the gap and actually took the lead momentarily before we got Luke back in the game, and he kind of righted the ship and we ended up finishing the deal. So first trip to the state finals in school history. It's been a really fun week just to celebrate this team and also to appreciate last year's team who really kind of set the table for this team in terms of giving them that postseason experience and helping this group come to expect success, which I think is so important at the high school level. And obviously excited for the game on Saturday. Crown Point's got a great team. I mentioned Pike was one of our 3 regular season losses. Crown Point was another.
Before you go on with that matchup with Crown Point, you glossed over the fact that your son Owen had probably 2 of the biggest shots because he converted 2 technical free throws after New Albany made that run with Ertl on the bench in foul trouble to take that lead. How nervous were you? Because I know we talked the other day and I said I think some of the hardest free throws in the world to make are in a close game when you have to go to the free throw line and there's nobody on the lane, lined up on the lane.
Yeah, they were clutch free throws for sure. That was late in the third quarter. And when you get to that semi-state environment, there are 8,000 people there at Newcastle and people from both sides really invested in that game, highly emotional, competitive game. And so I was confident in his ability. Again, the one thing that he can do is shoot it. And he's really expanded his game in a number of different areas, but he's a confident shooter. And he stepped up and shot those confidently. And they were 2 big shots for us to kind of right the ship, again, to give Luke a chance to get back in the game and then to kind of regain control from there. So, to be honest, watching Owen shoot it is probably the most confident I am. I'm probably more relaxed when he shoots it than almost anything else that happens because, like for everyone else, it's almost surprising when he misses. He's really worked hard and has a unique skill set in that area. So I was proud of him, of course, not only for those free throws he made, but for a couple of big threes he hit in that game. And, of course, Saturday will be an even bigger stage and in some ways even more pressure, but we're really trying to focus on the opportunity and, trying to just encourage that confidence and freedom to go out and let it rip and to continue to do what he's done all season.
Summary of how you see the matchup on Saturday, the rematch with Crown Point.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. Both teams are so talented, very athletic. Crown Point's got a couple of real high-level players in Dikembe Shaw and Mason Darrell, and then just extreme depth beyond those two guys, and they're a seasoned team. They lost to Fishers in the semi-state the last 2 years, so they've been knocking on the door, and I think use that difficult postseason experience from their past to really kind of drive this run that they're on this year. And in that way, neither team has ever been to the state finals before. Both coaches are two of the best coaches in the state. Joe Bradburn at Mount Vernon and Clint Swan at Crown Point are both longtime experienced coaches, both great fan bases. Always in a game like that, there will probably be a couple of key plays that really make the difference. I think whoever can probably find a way to kind of corral like the superstars from the other team. The Shaw kid from Crown Point, who's committed to University of Illinois Chicago, is a unique matchup for us. He's long and athletic and, capable of scoring it at all three levels. And so it will be a difficult matchup for us, but also gives you some confidence to know and believe that you've got the best player on the floor, who I think Luke Ertl will be on Saturday. And so as worried as we may be about stopping them, I'm sure it doesn't feel like a picnic from them on their end either.
I will say this, listening to you and you talking about defense, I know you probably are really thrilled about that, because I remember from when you were at Tipton, you're always talking about defense and how important it was, because your offense can come and go, but you should be able to pack your defense and it show up every game.
Yeah, and I think that will be especially true this weekend. Like playing in a new environment, that backdrop at Gamebridge is unique. And anytime you get on that stage, there are some kids that always shoot it well, but I think as a general statement, it can be harder to shoot in that environment than it is in a typical high school gym. And Saturday may be one of those days where offense is a little harder to come by. And I think for both teams, part of the reason they are where they are is because they've defended all year. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a high-paced, exciting, high-scoring game, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being kind of a knockdown, drag-out, rock fight and two tough-nosed, defensive-minded teams that are really competing at that end on a high level.
And now, Coach, I'm sorry, I still call you Coach. You're always going to be Coach to me, because in some ways you are still coaching. So that's what we're going to talk about. You stopped coaching high school basketball so you could become more involved and not miss your son's activities. But you haven't really left that coaching personality behind. You're still actively involved through your Champions 101. I know you do a newsletter. So go into us and tell us about Champions 101.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for calling me Coach. I to this day, I still love being called Coach. That's such an honor in my life, and anybody that calls me that, I take as a compliment. So I still think of myself as a coach. It's been 8 years since I had that position officially. As you mentioned, I got out of coaching in 2018. And in 2021, I started this program called Champions 101. It's a sports performance and leadership development program that provides training and support and resources, really kind of on the mental side of sports performance for athletes and coaches and sports parents. So I had the opportunity to take all those years of experience as an athlete many years ago, but more recently as a coach and as a parent, and just try to help support people who are in the midst of navigating what I know from experience can be a really challenging part of life. It's an important part of life for a lot of people, but a difficult road to navigate effectively. And so I am fortunate that I was able to have a number of successes throughout my athletic career, both as a player and as a coach. But I'll also say that my career as a player and coach both were also defined by some really challenging losses and defeats and failures. And I think all of us have to accept that that's a harsh reality of competing in any area of life at a high level. And so that's really what I hope Champions 101 can be. I'd say that's really kind of become my mission professionally, is to coach people, is to help clarify for them what their very best looks like and what it requires from them. It's been a real fun new adventure in my life. It's not something that I particularly saw coming. I thought I would be a teacher and coach for life. And so it's been a new adventure. I've learned a lot and have enjoyed, of course, the freedom that it's given me to really be involved in my kids' sports experience and to be a little more present than at home than I was when I was grinding through that coach experience. But it's also been a real rewarding opportunity for me to just kind of keep sharing a message with people, keep encouraging them, and hopefully keep helping them reach their potential.
Travis, you talked about this Champions 101. Do you go around the country or around the state and talk to at luncheons or conferences or things like that?
Yeah. So the heart of our program is virtual training system. So we've created a lot of online content, and then we partner with schools who use that programming with the coaches and athletes and parents at their school. So I spend a lot of time traveling now to schools around the country to share that message, to help support some of that important work that typically is kind of overseen and directed by athletic directors. It's been fun to work with a number of our schools kind of here in this area, and been fun to see the program grow and expand to a number of different schools and all sorts of places. I think we've got partners in 18 different states now, and it looks like, we're going to be in more places next year. So really rewarding work I've been able to do, and really grateful for the opportunity.
My last question, real quick. What will it mean to you if Mount Vernon wins on Saturday for you to watch your son experience the state championship? And I know either way he's going to get a medal, but a medal with the blue ribbon.
Yeah, it'll be such a fun day. And of course, as a competitor, you always want to win. I will say, ironically, you were asking about Champions 101. It's easy for us when we hear that word champion to connect it to some winning outcome, right? The score on the scoreboard, or a trophy, or a medal, or a banner that's hanging to represent some historic achievement. But the work that we do at Champions 101 is really focused more on the process of becoming the kind of person that winning requires you to be. And I will say, despite what happens on Saturday, whether Mount Vernon wins or loses, whether Owen Daugherty is the leading scorer or misses every shot that he takes, I'm most proud of the person that he is, and his competitive spirit, and the winning qualities and characteristics that he's made a part of his experience. So I'm going to be cheering loud for Mount Vernon on Saturday, and I'm going to be hoping that every shot goes in, and that at the end of the night, we have more points on the scoreboard than our opponent. The outcome Saturday will not affect in any way, shape, or form my pride in who he's become and how hard he's worked, and how worthy of success he is.
Coach Daugherty, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck to the Marauders.
Yes, thanks
to both
Travis.
of you. Appreciate
and
it.
I will be cheering for Mount Vernon on Saturday.